We haven't asked Sturbridge for money for a long time. We have asked the other towns and successfully got grants from the other towns to treat weeds, to support us on non-point source solutions, diversion berms and so forth and so on, to keep nutrients out of the pond. We've had 319 grants with Brookfield, East Brookfield, over the years. But Sturbridge is the logical town to be the host for this particular 319 grant. We are in the process of appealing to the town of Brookfield, East Brookfield, for more monies. We're certainly going to need more monies. Basically, a 319 grant, do you know about them? Okay, a 319 grant is a grant from the EPA, DEP. It's 60%, 40%. 60% state funds, 40% town funds, community funds, and so forth. We'll be applying for $342,000 for this treatment.
So is that option 2? Was that option 2 in that plan? Get that up again?
Well,
No.
the top line, the best treatment would be $342,000. 40% of that is $136,800. Right? We're asking 55 from Sturbridge. We'll be asking as much as we can get from Brookfield and East Brookfield. We'll be asking money from the YMCA. We already have a fund at QQLA where we've devoted $10,000 already, and we'll probably get more out of the lake residents to hopefully come up with the other needed $71,800 that we will need over and above what QQLA can contribute right now. But we have $10,000 in the Treasury already earmarked for this project. So we are going forward. We have appointments for the other two towns to begin that process. The other two towns sometimes do warrants, sometimes they don't. So we don't know exactly what we're going to need. We're in discussions with them right now.
So if any one of those funding mechanisms doesn't come forward and you're unable to make up the difference, then you even if you're awarded the grant, you don't have sufficient matching funds, and
Exactly.
and you wouldn't expend the monies that were given to you or committed to you unless you could carry out, had the full funding from all the sources and could carry
Right.
out the project.
Exactly. Right.
Likewise, if you had commitments from various sources to provide the matching piece and you didn't get the grant, you're not looking to use the monies that were committed to do a partial project.
No, we couldn't. Right. We couldn't do that. And that will all be in the 319 grant spelled out. The duties of the host town are actually in.
Oh, wait a minute, Jeff.
I think yes, I forwarded to you the RFR on a 319 grant. There's a paragraph of what the duties of the host town is, essentially a banker, right? Or treasury through which all funds flow. You will be part of the final sign-off on the grant. Right, so that goes through the town of Sturbridge. The grant writer, it would be Carl Nielsen from ESS, Environmental Sciences Group. And He has worked with our organization for a number of years on South Pond. He was born and raised on South Pond, so he's kind of familiar with it.
Now, who would actually do the treatment? Would it be ESS, or is it another?
No, there are very few companies that undertake this because you need a very specialized boat that's run on a GPS to drop all of the right stuff in the right place and a tanker. South Pond is an ideal site for it because of all of the mechanics, the deep pond, deep hole, and the amount of nutrients is very, very well mapped out. There's only a few companies that do this. Even though it is a common treatment, it's been done in several places. I think I sent you a PowerPoint slide where it was done in under ESS supervision in a reservoir in Rhode Island. Reservoirs are very, very commonly treated with alum. Simply because you can't afford to have algae in a water supply. It's certainly not good for drinking. And the blue-green algae that we have experienced in South Pond is not only, it's a public health hazard, it's not good for drinking, people can react to it, people can get sick, pets can die when they drink the water.
And what about the fish and the mussels? The report said that there'd be some monitoring on that. Who does that and for how long?
Any effect would be immediate, and that's would be part of an effort we would have on in-kind contributions to the grant, monitoring pH and so forth. Very little risk in this particular situation because we'll be treating only the deep hole, and by the time the alum gets dissolved and gets down there, it's below any life anyway. There won't be any
There's no
life.
organisms at all at the bottom?
No. Below, in the South Pond, below 45 feet, the oxygen just disappears.
Just
There's no
disappears.
plants, there's no animals, there's
You said there was anaerobic life.
anaerobic. So we'll be treating only an anaerobic target. Won't go further than that, I mean, because it gets really technical, but it's a well-known process, well-controlled process. There haven't, historically, I think there may have been some mistakes early on, 30 years ago, but there's been no mistakes since.
Is there any ADA compliant public access to this pond within Sturbridge?
Within Sturbridge?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. So no one besides the homeowners can use the pond from some point in Sturbridge?
There is a landing in Sturbridge, but it's one that's not normally, I mean, some people do use it, but it's not like, there's a perfectly, a much better state-run launch at the far north end of the pond, which is in East Brookfield. I'm sorry, it's in Brookfield. But there is access in Sturbridge off of South Pond Road.
If I may, there are houses on Allen Road that have deeded beach rights, and there's access off of South.
Yeah, but
Off
my
Tantascwa
point
Shore
is- my point
Road
is-
there, there's an access there, because I happen to have used it.
It's not ADA compliant.
It's not.
So you have
Somebody's
to,
backyard practically.
so the only way a Sturbridge resident gets access is you gotta go to Brookfield if you
That's the only way
don't
anybody
live on
gets
the pond.
access. That's the only, unless you're a resident on the water, that's the only way you get access.
Now, with regard to ADA, there has been a proposal by Ann Goby, I think, to put a ADA facility in Brookfield at the beach, and it's largely being discouraged, basically because the water level in South Pond varies by plus or minus 3 feet, depending upon the rain.
Is
So-
it dam controlled?
No. There's no dam control in South Pond. No. And a tremendous amount of backwater.
I mean, okay. So you don't actually lower the level in the winter and then block it up to increase it?
No, we have no control of the water level in South Pond. So it would be a very, very bad idea to put in any kind of floating dock unless you attend to it all the time. And there is no way the state is going to attend to anything 12 months a year. It doesn't happen, right? So as much as we would like to support those things, we would end up, as we do many times, having responsibilities with no authority.
Okay.
And that doesn't work.
No, you just set up to fail.
Karen?
I have a question, too.
Two questions. How easy is it to get this grant once you have the 40%? Are these fairly easy to get, or?
No. I don't know how much money the state has, and the MDEP been able to put on, Spencer, through the EPA, has mitigated a lot of their emissions. This last round assures that they will be going forward with best management practices. The amount of water that backflows into South Pond from the Quabog River is a source of continued nutrients, but nothing like it has been in the past. That's the reason why we now went with the total analysis to now look for the main source of nutrients in South Pond. And if you read the report, the ESS report, which was copied to you, you will find that the main source, by far, of the nutrients in South Pond are in South Pond, the bottom layers of South Pond.
Just
doing
being
this.
stirred up.
Right? And this treatment is projected to bring the balance right back to the TMDL a la 2007 MDEP TMDL, which is the balanced budget of nutrients. And getting it down to that level, despite the little bit of inflow, will pretty much do it and bring the whole pond back into an alignment of nutrients that will have some staying power for quite a long period of time. We're ideally, if we can raise all of the money, we're probably looking at 25 years. If we can't quite get that amount, it'll probably be 10, 15 years before we might have to do a retreatment. All right.
So, if you don't get the grant the first time around, can you reapply?
Oh, yes, yes,
So you
yes.
can apply as many times as, and then the question is this going to help to resolve the muckiness of the bottom, like in that beach area?
That is the target, right,
So that's what it helps to eliminate?
right. And the muckiness that you might experience, and particularly as you go deeper and deeper, is dead algae, basically.
And that muckiness is enjoyed by all those people that live on the pond in Sturbridge. It used to be that it was predominant to the east side of the pond where I happen to live, but now it's truly all the way around the pond that people have muck on their beaches and are not happy about it. I don't know if I'm sure that the town has been made aware of it by residents around the lake.
Right.
But it is a problem. The algae dies, turns kind of blackish, brownish, and floats into shore.
Now, the reason for the muck isn't just last year's phosphorus. The reason for the muck is historic abuse. Compared to what the Spencer wastewater treatment plant puts out right now, 30 years ago, it was 50 times more rate. You add that accumulation to 100 years of Spencer's existence, they're not using their toilets any less. Back then or now, it's been a constant population. You can imagine the amount of nutrients that have accumulated. Plus, historic agriculture, which is almost non-existent now. And Title V has been in effect for how long?
Since the
So
90s?
a lot of, a lot of abusive properties around a place like South Pond, which has been developed for years, have now turned over. So the non-point source nutrients in South Pond, we project, have really not much of an impact on the nutrients that are going into South Pond. It's well studied, and the balance sheet looks good, and it's time for an alum treatment.
Still have Mike and then Kevin.
I thought you said earlier there was about 50 to 60 homes within Sturbridge along the lake?
50 to 60%.
Percent, okay.
I think about 60% of the homes on South Pond are in Sturbridge. And then 10 in
So, and if I'm looking for the number of homes that are on the lake roughly, you got a,
Probably about 60, 65. I did
and how much does a homeowner pay to your association for Karen on an annual basis for membership?
$60, we keep it low. We have a
And
lot of
that covers
activities that
the,
raise money.
whatever treatments you need to do and upkeep and other things?
Weed treatments primarily, but that only covers a very small portion, maybe 15 or 20%. That $60 we pay in doesn't come close to covering the cost of the weed treatment. So we have additional fundraisers around the lake in order to come up with the what is it now, it's about $30,000 a year.
Right.
About $30,000 to treat the pond for weeds. So we don't generate that kind of income from the dues.
And but we do get, through SLAC, in the dissemination of monies for all of the ponds in Sturbridge, we do get some, maybe $1,000 to $1,800 per year in support of our weed treatment, which ends up to be at least $14,000, $15,000 a year.
And I'll yield to Kevin, but I keep hearing slack a
The
whole
Sturbridge
lot.
Lake
Sturbridge
Association.
Lake Association,
Oh, committee?
with a C.
Yeah.
Now, both their letter as well as the Sturbridge Conservation letter have been submitted to you
Yes.
in support of the project.
Kevin?
So did we get an answer? Because on the face, this article is not valid. We can't even act on it because it doesn't identify the source of the funds, doesn't tell you where the funds are going. It doesn't actually identify the amount of the funds in the proper manner. And I'm wondering if you got to the town council to get an answer on this. Because a lot of this is just,
Access to town council.
I
I
would-
did
I would
get
s-
to Barbara, but I didn't connect with her. I don't know if,
I would say if the finance committee were inclined to recommend we move forward with this, then we would need to work with town council to craft a motion that's, we can bring to town meeting, that, along the lines of we
this is a
raise-
petition, you have to vote this exact article as it's written.
well, we usually don't change them. Jeff,
We could,
I know it's been sent to town council, the whole
The
warrant.
town attorney has these, we should have answers on the package by mid next week.
so you're suggesting that we couldn't craft, with, our motion is the one that gets acted on for articles, that, a motion
Correct.
that says that the town vote to, let me say, raise and appropriate $50,000, or come up with the funding
Correct.
source for the purposes of whatever,
Because-
blah, 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 and craft a letter of support and put whatever three things we are
Right,
being
because
asked
this is a
in there.
petition article, it's not any, it's got to be considered by the way it's presented and by the people that signed it. We can't muck with it. It's up or down.
I
So
guess I
you
would
get
ask,
in
well,
water then?
Jeff's
I
new,
mean-
he might want to ask that question for his own
Yeah.
education with town council. I
Yeah,
thought
we
we
don't,
had
yeah,
that
we
out
don't
there.
usually change it because it is petitioned, but at the same time.
Well, this is what my question was. We know the intent, but this article is not valid.
Right, so with maybe with some guidance from town council, some guidance could be given to the people that wrote to rewrite it, and maybe the Board of Selectmen would reopen the warrant and accept it as a,
Maybe,
Different
but that would be the way to go.
that would be the way to go. Because
Or
I
it
heard
comes-
them say, when it came up before them, and I think we spoke, Kevin, that you
They
watched
just
it too.
placed it. They didn't support
They voted
it.
to place it because they couldn't vote beyond that.
Right.
Because of
But
the
did they
structure
bring
of
up
the
any
article.
of these issues?
They said they had a lot of questions, and they were gonna get some questions answered on it. I
And
forget the specifics, but they had questions on it.
And I would
But-
think for us as a finance committee, the issue is this, is this
Where's the money
a
coming from?
town asset that the taxpayers across town
Well-
should have some level of responsibility for funding in this case?
Okay.
And then how would we do that from there? And
I
and
counter
realizing
that
This
argument.
is one, it could be others. I think Cedar Lake had an algae problem last fall that closed.
Right.
with
Cedar Lake is
same-
slightly different because there actually is a public beach there owned by the town of Sturbridge. Now,
Recreation area.
there is, I mean, I don't see this any different than like, for instance, the water problem occurring on McGilpin Road, right? They're being affected by a third-party source. Their wells are being, I mean, injected with lead, dioxin, whatever they may be found. So for us to rectify that, we actually charge them betterments for us to fix it. We charge the homeowner to take care of the problem that's a third-party problem. I don't see any difference when it comes to owning a house on a pond. $60 a year for membership seems kind of low, considering where we're at. And, I mean, it's their front, it's part of their property value. If eutrophication occurs, it becomes solid land. I mean, we've had this discussion before the finance committee. Their home values may go down because it's not waterfront property anymore, but then everybody's houses in town goes up to make up for the shift in tax values. But I don't see a philosophical difference in a homeowner who's facing a Title V failure or some type of well injection in someone whose, lake is being affected by, potassium or phosphorus or whatever's being injected into the lake. And in two of those cases, we force the homeowners to pay for it.
And if it's a homeowner, it's my property and my use, and it's not public use. In this case, we're talking about a lake that does have public access, is for the
In
public
Brookfield.
enjoyment of people.
Actually, I believe it's a great
You
pond,
have
so
to-
it's owned by the
It
state.
is a great pond.
We'll use the term, yeah, okay.
And that's what the water
This is a body of water that has public access recreation for people enjoying, in Sturbridge, in the area. You may have to go to Brookfield to get that access, but it is
It's free access.
part of the area, and part of that body of water is located within the town of Sturbridge.
And nobody owns the body of water because it's a great pond, so that's why you get the funding from the state, because we all own that pond. Taxpayers own the pond.
319 grant is all about.
Bruce, you had a
But the
question?
state doesn't pay the full cost of remedying a problem on the state-owned body of water.
Exactly.
Bruce had a question?
Could you just walk me through the amounts that each agency are paying? You said Sturbridge is paying $55,000.
Repeat the question. I don't think I could hear you.
I was curious about who are the other payers and how much are they paying?
Okay.
You went through it, but could you go through it again?
First of all, briefly, I don't know. I can't list all of them.
Okay.
How much they're paying, well, certainly Brookfield will be asking them for money. We'll be asking them for at least, letter of support. We have to get support, at least verbal support. East Brookfield, Newton YMCA.
Because there's that YMCA camp there.
So that sort of diminishes because how many East Brookfield addresses are there on South Pond? Probably not many. except you've got the YMCA, but they don't pay taxes. But we'll get a chunk of money from them. They realize the problem. They're at major risk with regard to usable water. The residents of South Pond will kick in quite a bit of money. We have a lot of money to make up to go from, to get an additional $71,800.
What about Brookfield? They have quite a few homes on the,
Oh, yeah, well, they have a lot of
west side of the
risk
pond.
at the beach.
and they have all the homes starting at the town line on Allen Road. That's a lot of,
Oh, yes, yes.
so a lot of lanes going in there.
Right. I think I estimated some 30% of the addresses.
So how much money were we gonna ask Brookfield for?
As much as we can get, I don't know.
So I think what you said earlier, you're looking for about $132,000 for the matching grant piece. You're asking Sturbridge for about 50 or 55 of that as part of the...
136.8 is the top line, 40%, asking Sturbridge for 55.
And you already have 10, I think you said you
We
already
already
have.
have 10. We have 10 of the kitties going forward.
So
We
you're
actually
gonna-
have
about-
10 that were left over from a previous 319 grant that didn't get.
So the balance is roughly 63,000.
I think you clarified it, but I got more confused. What's the total amount of the grant that you're asking for?
342.
That
Okay,
option two that was in that
342
study.
down to 137. Okay, I'm with you.
You know, it's, actually, there has been a precedent on this. Back in the early 80s, the town did allocate money for a part of a matching grant for Walker Pond dredging, which never occurred. The town did allocate it at town meeting. It was probably around 82 or 83. And I think they may have done it one other time, too. Though Walker Pond is completely in Sturbridge, and it is a great pond as well.
The only other pond in Sturbridge that might even eventually qualify for alum treatment would be Big Alum.
Lead mine's pretty deep, too.
And how
is-
deep is lead mine?
I don't know, but I don't think they put books on it.
They don't,
Big Alum had alum in
Pretty
it already.
isolated.
It's 20, 30 feet deep. I think that,
Uh,
it was nowhere near deep. That'd be the same problem with Cedar.
Oh, Cedar is, right, Cedar's way too shallow. I think the deep hole in alum is about 45 feet. But probably not a big anoxic zone. Certainly hasn't had the nutrient load challenge that South Pond has. I don't know what the history of agriculture around Big Alum is, if you go back a couple of hundred years.
They have
So
no
I really
public
don't know.
beach. Big Allen doesn't have a public beach.
they don't, I thought there was one public point.
They have a launch, but,
Oh,
Which gives you access for recreational purposes. Yeah.
No,
So, like, so
South
Ken-
Pond is certainly a gem of recreation, used widely in the area, certainly heavily used by Sturbridge folks that go down there and chase the trout around that just been put in.
So Kathy, I think I understand the issue and the proposed solution, but it's unclear as to where we might be going here. And I certainly understand the form of this article won't work at town meeting. So I guess the question is, are we looking at a way to maybe come up with another form, and would we in general support, had this come in the proper form, would we be supportive of it? Or even if it was in the right form, we would not be supportive of this article, in which case we can end discussion here, and or we can say
At
if,
this point, you have nothing to act on, it's not valid.
I think he's just asking
I'm saying,
theoretically, are we
if this
in
came
support of
back
it?
tomorrow in a form that had the proper means of raising, of getting the funds through some mechanism for a defined purpose, and authorizing the selectmen to be the host of this grant, and putting a letter of support in as being asked. If it came in the right format, would we be supportive of it?
$55,000 as well.
And putting in the
oh,
money?
yeah.
Which would come from where?
You need to identify.
We can figure it out whether it comes from free cash, raise and appropriate. That's up for us to decide what the proper mechanism is for
Maybe the
funding
drone
this.
for betterment.
Again, if we don't think that the town should be funding any other solution for this problem or solutions in other lakes, then it's a simple no action and, no sense trying to figure out how to bring forward a right article to achieve that. If we think we should be stepping up and funding this solution for the better of the Sturbridge residents and taxpayers, then our discussion could be, how do we get that article in the right format so that it can be acted on at this town meeting?
Okay, I'll make a motion that we take no action on Article 43,
I-
and then that always can be reconsidered. But at this point, it's not a valid article, so I'm going to take it as it's written and recommend we take no action.
Well, I think he's actually looking more for a sort of a
Yeah,
straw
let's get a
poll here,
consensus
to
of,
some sort of consensus.
you know,
so
whether
that
you
hopefully
would
that,
be-
Is that no action because it's this way? And is it also no action if it were properly drafted and presented?
Right now, it's because it's presented this way.
but I think we need to give both Jeff and these people some guidance on whether they should go forward and let's get this, and how we can get this into the proper form. Otherwise,
Well, that's it,
we're
you
spinning
know,
our
It's
wheels.
not how, it's if.
Well,
We
why
have a
don't we
motion.
take a
Let's see if
poll
there's
to
a
see
second.
who would
No
be...
second, the motion dies.
Who would consider this and
I'm with you.
without a formal vote?
I-
So
one-
I
one
would.
one question before, I think, and this is me because I'm not very familiar with lake terminology, but when you refer to nutrients in the buildup, this is some sort of pollutants over decades, or is this natural vegetation that's just a natural dying off cycle?
Pollutants over decades would be the way to look at
Okay.
this. And
And so, it was definitely been affected by the Spencer wastewater
Oh,
treatment.
absolutely.
oh, definitely.
Yes, I was told that today
It
by somebody else.
accelerates it, but it's a natural process. All bodies utrefy. There's no way to stop it unless
Sure,
you
right.
actually intervene.
Well, yeah, that's true.
But that's
but-
a 1,000-year process,
Oh, yeah.
many 1,000-year process.
Okay, yeah, it just wasn't explicitly, I understand now, yeah.
But this is 99% human abuse, I'll put it that way.
Of course I do.
But can be mitigated in the case of South Pond.
We have college on the other end.
A lot of ponds are not eligible for this.
The beach, yeah.
The state would support this if they had money. I mean, they long have stated that. Going back to, you look into the 2007 TMDL, there were statements in there that South Pond should have an alum treatment.
Okay, we do have a motion for no action. Is there a second? Hearing none, we,
Motion dies.
We'll go back to the poll.
So are we interested in sort of getting a consensus of people's feelings on
Yeah, I
this
think we should get a
So
straw-
we can give Mr.
oh,
Visit some
or a straw
advice.
poll or something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
I think,
Or just some
I'll
sort of
make a motion that we
consensus.
postpone
Well, I don't
action on this.
No, let's-
No, no, no.
We have to, we just
Informally.
postpone it.
Jim, I'm asking.
No, we just want an
let me go for it.
informal,
Yeah,
I know what you're talking about, Mike. I go along with that, so let's postpone, let's just table this for now and hope that people come up with a viable alternative that we can vote
Why,
on.
So-
Yes, but
why
do-
have them go through that exercise
If
if
we're gonna vote
if
no.
it doesn't appear that we're going to support it?
Oh, so you want to take a straw poll
So,
right now?
yeah,
See if
yeah.
you get 5 votes here right now, it's worth going forward, because we're missing a couple of people, so.
Yeah,
Okay.
so let's do that. Who would?
I would go
I
forward.
would support it.
I'll tell you, I'm leaning in that
I'm
direction.
abstaining.
I
I want to see the details of how we're funding it, what we're doing, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, all, the details matter. You can't just,
And
Right,
that's
but
what
I
this is
think
about.
that, I
It
think
does
there's
matter.
enough here for Mr. Visser to move forward
Right.
with finding a way to see if this article can be redrafted to where
Well,
we could.
and for them, and for Jeff to instruct town council to
So
figure
it's-
this
it's
out.
fleshed out so that we
So
can
I-
make an informed
Yeah,
decision.
right.
So I think what we're saying is the majority here is sort of reaching a conclusion that this is a body of water that adds value to residents of the town of Sturbridge, residents and visitors of the town of Sturbridge in some fashion that is worthwhile for the taxpayers of the town of Sturbridge to fund a portion of the needed treatment to solve this problem, whether that's free cash or raise and appropriate, something else, is a discussion we should be leaning as to how we feel it should be funded. And that the the town of Sturbridge should act as the host of this grant that's being sought, and provide a letter of support for the grant through the Board of Selectmen, and we should fund it to the tune of X dollars. Now, 55, in my mind, is probably the limit there. If there's a way to get a lower number or something to show we're going there, we could have that discussion. But that seems to be what the majority is saying, and giving them some direction. If a properly worded article can be presented for our consideration and brought to this town meeting.
Would you have a suggestion as to who that person might be that we could contact that could write such a?
Town
I'm
council.
going to say
You'd have to
the,
go through the town administrator to get to the town council.
Conservation Commission, and all that would have known how to write the article correctly.
Yeah, but they have.
I think
there
they
was a
were
letter
just there to
from the
support
conservation.
the treatment of body work.
Drafted the article for
But
them.
they didn't.
But they did it.
Now, if they're interested. I think
So Jeff,
is
I think
interested.
between you and Barbara, so you can help them come up with or conversations with town council could.
They just, they voted to place it.
I don't
They
want to
just
spend,
kicked it down the
hours and
road.
hours of town council time to write an article, but I'm sure that he could quickly put something together.
Tell them that there's such an issue on this warrant and ask for their guidance.
And
As part of
based
their
on the
review.
knowledge across the street at the Concom, I think they could probably give a lot of guidance on this. There's some people over there that are really qualified to talk to the
Yep.
contractors.
I spent genuine time with them. Anytime I kind of approached,
They didn't want to,
time was above my pay grade.
okay,
Ah,
okay.
Well, regardless, if you want it to go forward, it has to be in the
May
proper
I
form.
also recommend that you check with the town moderator that he won't rule any article written by anybody else as our scope.
I will, though he does usually give some leniency to petition
But I would
articles,
check
but I will
before,
check with
because
him.
That would just end all of this.
Yeah, I will
If
check
the,
with
if the
him
form of
tomorrow.
motion contains the elements that are in here, the funding level, the support of the host of the grant, whatever, I think he'll say the motion is within the scope of what the petition is. And if it comes from
But
one or more of
the
the
fact that
petitions,
it's a
it'll be-
petition that changes everything.
we should understand that. That issue comes up every year for some article coming by petition that we're not quite sure exactly what the rules of engagement are, or we're a little unclear as to what we can and can't do in some cases, so.
So in
I'll
So-
reach out to
future,
him
too,
tomorrow.
We should be able to expect anyone getting water and sewer because of a third party that we give that some type of,
No, and in that case, I would go back and say, and we had the same issue with Mountain Brook Drive, who, where the residents along there wanted to repave and repair the roadway.
but it was a private drive.
And
right?
drainage.
But it was private
There was
road.
drainage
But they brought an
problem.
article where we funded it and through a betterment thing. So that's for those people, it's not necessarily a town road, and it was a private way, or whatever it was, they did it, the repairs via betterment. The water and sewer issues that you keep raising, those are for individual homeowners, not for the general public at all. If we use it as a funding mechanism where we get reimbursement from them through betterment, and we're guaranteed to get that money, that's an appropriate way, but not to take free cash or raise and appropriate taxes to solve those individual problems.
I mean, I would
If-
say,
if-
though, that
if
the
we didn't have
lake
this
is
as
a
a rec-
recreational
Right.
lake.
If this was not a recreational area, I'd say,
I used it,
no.
brought my kids there all the time.
If you tell me that this is,
I did.
pond over on that end there behind, drawing, but, you know, no,
Big Allen?
no.
Lead mine?
Lead mine?
Lead mine.
I'm gonna go down the list here.
Something that doesn't have public access and, public recreation use, and it's just by the homeowners, well, that's a different problem. Maybe I'd be open to a funding mechanism subject to betterment or whatever else, but this is one that I know, even though you got to go into Brookfield, I know a lot of people in town go up and use it through that Brookfield access.
Yes.
I wish there was another matter. I mean, in perspective, 55,000 is only like 12% of annual taxes collected in Southampton.
We know.
The microphone.
Oh, sorry, Jeff.
It's a small amount of money, but we're also trying to fund other positions and doing other things, and we have to do it appropriately.
A way to amortize this. But the state only gives us one option.
It's
It
on,
should
don't
be
worry
on.
about it. It's
It's
good.
green there.
You're good.
Okay, this is from Barbara, she's watching at home. Just so you know, I spoke, Barbara, spoke to the town moderator on the petitioned article. He said that he felt there was enough in the article as to intent and would allow it to move forward with a motion. Obviously, we need to get the town council's opinion.
Oh, okay.
Good to know. Thank
That is
you.
good to know.
So
Thank
if
you.
if your motion reflects what's within the bounds of that, and doesn't go beyond it, we're good.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
could we defer action?
yes. Well,
Yeah.
I think that's what we were trying to accomplish with that
Right.
sort of straw vote type of thing.
We're gonna,
But I think what we're saying is that, yes, move forward with trying to figure all this out through town council and the moderator and Barbara Berry and the administrator, and then back to us.
Does anyone have a conflict of interest on the board with this?
I no longer own property on South Pond. I used to, but I don't now.
Just want to make sure that this, because that'll just nullify the whole vote too.
Huh? What's that? It's been about, I think it's been 4 years, so.
I don't think we have anybody on South Pond. And I assume won't be anywhere near it, so.
Okay,
I mean, you won't
okay,
be.
thank you.
so are you clear on the next step, Mr.
No,
Visitor?
I'm not.
So we need to come up with a wording,
Mine is, because
we need to come up with a wording for your article. I think the town administrator and/or Barbara will ask a couple of questions of town council to find out a way to do that. If you want to circle back with them or make sure he has your contact information so that he can get back to you after they've done a little research into
I
this.
think I have his contact info. I have your email at any rate.
you have my email, my cell phone. I think Barbara Berry called me on
Probably.
some
She may have.
time ago.
Yep.
right?
Oh, okay.
So she knows I'm the contact on this.
Yes, she told me that you were the contact.
Right. And anybody else, or, when should I expect it to be contacted? I'll, I blow a lot of time on this, I'll blow a little bit.
Well, time is short for us, so probably in a week or so.
I would say give them a week to look into it and get back to you. If you haven't heard in about a week from now, you can follow up with them.
Because we don't necessarily need to plug into to the town administrator or the town council ourselves directly.
No. Well,
So that's, Jeff is our town administrator right there.
actually, the town moderator is always very happy to talk to people
Yes,
who have
he is
petitioned.
Very good.
He has
about
told
that.
me that. It's Mike Keplak.
If
You know
they're,
him?
if the discussions that Barbara and Jeff have with town council kind of lead to an article that we believe will be properly crafted and can be brought to town meeting, then they'll get it to you, they'll get it to us for further discussion. If we choose to support it once we see it, you should certainly share it with the town moderator so he knows that it's coming prior to town meeting. And can be prepared for that substitute motion.
Okay, well, thank you for coming. I think we have the information we need.
I have a logistical question. How was the straw poll reflected in the minutes?
As discussion.
Probably discussion, yeah.
Did it indicate?
How would you like it in?
No, I would prefer that didn't indicate that there was consensus to move forward with it, but not who voted what, where, and when.
There was no action, you guys kind of just did this, there was no real vote, like,
I mean, there was no
You
formal
record by
motion.
person? You just
You guys
record there was
just kinda-
consensus that we don't take any action tonight?
They turned out saying yes, there wasn't really like a real vote of.
We didn't count.
We
I
didn't sound
count.
like
I
we
didn't write
were
it
fully
down.
behind it, but we were leaning in that direction, is the way the hands were indicating to you. Gotcha.
Well, I just didn't want to indicate it like it was a legitimate vote.
No, it was not a vote.
Okay.
think
Uh,
it
But
was-
it doesn't, the
She's
minutes
got-
wouldn't reflect that by accident.
Right, but it can just say that there was consensus that we shouldn't take
Well, we
any
do have to
action.
vote on those minutes, so we could always make sure that.
He would like the first draft not to
Welcome to the
indicate it a
finance
certain way.
committee discussions on tangents.
Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you for coming, though. I bet.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you and good luck.
Okay.
You mentioned it was a dredging project in the water,
It never happened, but,
but it never happened.
right, it was in the early 80s, and because of the state park on the other side, they were putting money, that was a different state agency. And then I think it was the DEP, which was not the DEP then, it had a different name. And then the neighborhood had to put in a certain amount, and we had raised the money.
You could stand
And the town had to put in a
rushing
certain,
into South.
not a lot, a little bit. But then the state, not the state park people, but the state, whatever the DEP was back then, pulled out.
It was
So it was never dredged.
back in the probably 70s, there was a Sturbridge support for South Pond for an aeration project that never went forward because it was approved by the town of Sturbridge. It was a 319 grant. And it never went forward because the state was out of money.
In the 70s, yeah, that was,
I'm glad it didn't, because aeration on South Pond essentially was a bad idea.
And we just simply return the money and,
It was, well, the town of Sturbridge was never obligated.
Right, the town never, right, the town never paid the money. And I think the residents got their money back.
I have one follow-up question.
And the other thing is, the earliest money spent, if everything went under, would be the fall of 2020.
Okay.
That's not even,
that's
So
next
that's
fiscal year.
actually in,
In the 21
that's in
budget.
fiscal 21.
That's not even in this budget.
But he needs the money as part of
You
this
need the
budget
letter,
to get the grant.
commitment.
it's
And the
a
commitment.
chicken and the egg
Right.
thing. Without the 319 grant can't go through, without the 319 grant, we can't get 60% of the money that we need.
is the Board of Health involved in this too? Because you made a point about saying that it affected drinking water, so that
Well,
would bring
but
them
the
in.
Board of
Only
Health,
for animals.
yeah, the Board of Health certainly has been on alert, has reacted to blue-green algae in South Pond. They got all worried about it. We identified the organism. They were involved at least in a back and forth between the folks we used to identify the algae. So, yes, that has occurred, and that's going to occur increasingly.
All right, thank you. Okay, moving on. Yes.
I was really questioning funding because he just had so many holes in there. And I think a couple times we were pretty clear with him to bring the numbers with them. But I would say that I would not ever vote in favor of that going forward until we had all those numbers.
I think what he's saying is he needs to raise $137,000 for his part of the matching grant.
40%.
He's going to multiple people, doesn't know how much he's going to get. He's asking for $55,000 from Sturbridge. If we move forward, maybe he gets 55, maybe we say we only want to give him 47, who knows what number he gets from Sturbridge. As he puts all these pieces together with firm commitments, he'll know what he truly has. If he doesn't get the full 137, then he doesn't take any of that money, and he doesn't move forward with the grant. And, we're not obligated, we would want to make sure that the article's worded so that we're not obligated to produce the $55,000 or X thousand dollars unless all the funding sources are in place and the grant moves forward.
But when the motion comes back, I mean, when the article comes back, it's up or down based on what's on the article. There's no variation on what the amount can be. Whatever it says, that's either approved or it's denied. There's no negotiation at that point. And the other thing, I agree with Bruce on, I'd like to know specifically what they were asking East Brookfield for and Brookfield for. Not some that we're going to ask them for as much as they can afford. I'd like to know what they're going to pony up, because it gets in my head about the what's happened with the tuitions over the years at Tantascwa and also with the resource officer, and how come
Yeah.
we're gonna be stuck with with 60% of the bill? I just would like to know what others are kicking in, and I agree with that.
Instead of homeowners, he's gonna ask for a lot of money.
Yeah, I want to know what those towns are putting in as a town, just like we know what we're putting in for the resource officer at Tantascwa.
That was my concern, then, Mark, did they understand that you're gonna require that they have more?
I don't think they understood that. And unless somebody notifies them to tell them when they come back that it'll be a waste of their time if they don't provide those numbers, I think, out of fairness, if we are gonna be true to hearing it, we should reach out to them. I don't have a problem sending him an email if somebody has that address and just say, hey.
I do, yeah.
when you-
come from the chair or the vice chair.
Yeah, I have,
They're the only two.
His address is in the documentation that Kathy provided. There's a
Yeah.
letter there with his email in it.
yeah,
But officially, you are the only two
Right.
people who can speak for the finance.
right.
Okay, yeah, fine.
I think it would be fair to ask how they came up with those allocations, and is that a subjective or objective formula? Just
And what are the numbers they're gonna be asking the residents for?
Yeah.
What are the numbers they're asking East Brookfield and Brookfield for?
Yeah.
And why?
we want to make sure it's a fair and equitable
right.
distribution.
Yeah, I don't disagree that the residents should be kicking in as much as they can. I mean, if they're only doing it with some fundraiser, low-key fundraisers and $60 a year, that's not really cutting it.
So what do you say, 60 houses, if there's $1,000 or 60,000, there's half of his matching grant? I don't know, if $1,000 may be a lot to certain individual ones along the line, but, what's the appropriate number to ask for
That's a car rep-
homeowners
that's a
who
car
have
repair.
direct day-to-day benefit from the value of this?
Clean the water.
Yeah.
And property values maintained.
Well, yeah, and if it's not happening until 2020, they could do it over.
Property values is a non-starter.
Yeah.
Property values balance out in the taxes, so that's a non-starter.
No, but for a person who
For a
puts
person who
$1,000
owns it.
into their property to ensure that their property value maintains, that's worth
That's,
$1,000.
no, exactly.
No, it's not the
I like
tax
way
part of it,
that's
it's the,
Right.
it's what they may have bought it for and then what they can sell it for
Right.
on the
I
road.
agree from our perspective, property value is a non-starter. It's up to
Right.
them to protect their property value. We're trying to protect the lake. That's going to be used by our residents who happen not to live on the lake but want to use that beach. And if it's going to last 25 years at $55,000, that's just over $2,000 a year. If you want to divide it by the number of residents that use that beach and how often they use it, it's coming down, probably going to come down to a couple of bucks a day per person for 25 years. Because
Well,
I
it's-
go by that beach regularly, and it's packed in the summertime. It really is.
And they have a really nice boat ramp too, there's a
They've
lot
done
of
it, they've
boaters there.
redesigned that whole thing and changed it
Right, a lot
considerably.
of fishing going on.
There's a lot of fishing in that pond, there's a lot of boating on that.
Well, I think, so one of you will reach out to them and tell them we'll want that information.
I will do that.
And that could be part of our discussion, if we don't like the $55,000 number, because we're doing some math and think it should be less, but, it's 20 or 25,000 from the town, and, they're gonna have to work a little bit harder for homeowners along the part of the association, or along there to kick in a certain amount, and then the other towns, I mean, we could figure out what the right number is. Their ask is 55. To me, it's a stretch, it's a little high. If it were 20 and 25, I'd feel more comfortable. But how do we figure out, from a,
Bit of information now, if that comes back in a rewritten form, that has to go to the Board of Selectmen before it comes to us. In which case, hopefully, they'll do more than just vote to place it, they'll vote to support it.
Well, that's not unusual for them just to place, and
I
then
know.
usually write down recommendations.
Well, basically, they have no choice but to place it. They have
that's
to
assuming
place
he
it.
brings a substitute article that they change out, as opposed to, the warrant stays with the article as written, and he just comes forward with a substitute motion that moderator will accept as being within, the binds. And that's the way I thought that it was gonna play out. We weren't necessarily changing the article. He was coming forward with a substitute motion in a proper format.
At the town meeting.
At the
not even
town
in our
meeting,
board.
right.
So we wouldn't vote on it at all.
They would have to
No,
come
but we
forward.
should at least vote on, if there is that proper substitute motion, and we know it's gonna be brought forward, we should
won't
at
know.
least make a
Won't
recommendation.
know
Won't
though.
know until it's made that night. And they would have to make that substitute motion, is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is Mr.
It would have to be a
Visitor
vote
a
on
resident?
the town of Sterling.
Let's see
I
where we
believe
are
he is.
in a week or two.
Would have to be.
Well, in a week, yeah.
I believe he is.
Can we take note, make that a topic for essays, because this isn't the first time we've had petitions face challenges with the way they're worded, and I think the whole point of a petition is so that anybody can have something considered for article. It seems to be counterproductive that require a lawyer to get it right. And I'm not saying we should just let anything go. I think it does need to be worded properly, but there should be something to help.
Direction.
Yeah, it shouldn't get to us. It shouldn't get to us, and us have to say this
I mean,
isn't.
I
worded
know that
properly.
Mike Caplet is always, is happy to help people, but I don't know if people know that, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Well,
But
you
he's
know-
always said he'd be helping.
You know where he said it? You know when he does those sessions on
Yeah,
TV
that's
talking
true,
about?
he does say.
He repeats that all the time, that if people can come to him with that type of an issue.
Yes.
Perhaps we should have the town attorney, town council, develop kind of a
Template.
how-to, yeah, or a template that the clerk or my office can have for people who wish to submit a petition.
Yeah, the town clerk would be a good place, because that's
Yeah.
what people get before.
Right.
Here's how you need to draft it when you get the form.
This is the information that has to be included in this format it should
Great idea.
be. And we'll work on that.
Yeah.
That's my-
Great.
That's a good idea, because there are, we've seen many articles that are not really well drafted
Someone's
and,
gonna say, well, you're gonna spend time with the town attorney, it's gonna cost money. Well, it's better to spend it now creating a template
Yeah.
than each time one of these comes up, spending a couple hours with the people trying to crack it.
Right.
So,
right, exactly.
Right. Yeah, we shouldn't be using town council to craft our article, but we can give them the guidance and have them craft it right. That's good.
so it takes 10 minutes to review it rather than an hour and a half.
My question, when you're going to them, wasn't, to draft it, it was just, what is this switching in article first go?
As I said, I thought a substitute motion is the way to move forward versus a reworded article, but we'll see.
Anyway,
As Jared said, that it's the most direct form of democracy, and I think it would be great if Sturbridge led the way.
I think,
yeah.
should we,
At 8:04, I got a message. I have a
Oh,
text
no,
message
no
at
sound
8:04 that we have no sound on television.
is it cable or internet? That was a confusion.
She's watching it on
Yeah, there's
channel
no-
191.
Oh, there's not? Oh.
But what happens
What
is-
happened, go to the internet, because it's on the internet. My wife originally said there was no sound on the internet, but it's there now.
We're able to record these. so
Right.
the Playback has a sound.
Oh, I see, okay.
But you can watch it live right now if you go to the internet and do it, right from the town website.
They can't hear you say that.
Maybe they
I
can
don't
read
wanna
it.
I
hear-
was texting somebody, I thought you could just text them.
All right, how about moving on here?
Well, going backwards now, right? Chapter 41 or?
Well, we have to move backwards, that was the last article. We're still, if we go back to the beginning, I know there's probably gonna be some confusion because there's been renumbering now. But community preservation, we're trying to get next week. Had trouble getting hold of them.
Have we actually gotten hold of them, or?
Yes,
Okay.
Penny emailed me this morning, and I talked to Kathy, I'm gonna tell her Tuesday or Thursday next week. She's not gonna be around, but the rest of the committee will be around. And I also talked to Butch, and he's coming in Tuesday to talk
Yeah, they're
about that
coming Tuesday.
fluoride.
I have to send out, I have the agenda posted, I just haven't sent it to you.
Like first 16
Write these
pages.
kind of broad, so we don't have
As
to.
I said,
And that's on the fluoride.
First 16 pages.
Karen, were you able to get her her cell phone, or did you just, so,
No, never got a phone number.
I sent you the email, but you probably already had that, huh?
Yeah, but Kathy sent me 3 emails, and I emailed them all.
Okay. One of them worked,
And
apparently.
then she got back to me, yeah.
I had the same problem 2 years ago. It was,
All right.
kept missing each other.
Heavens, what haven't we done? I'm looking for what we haven't done here. Oh, the zoning map, which is, let's see, let's get the correct, oh, it's still 36. Excellent. Article 36, in both new and old. And this is the,
Oh, you don't.
behind, you know where the parking lot is behind
The
the
barn.
barn and whatever else is in that complex. Evidently, they don't have enough parking when they have events, and so they own some of that park, area, land beyond, which is zoned residential. So they want to extend the commercial tourist district. So the entirety of whatever they own there will be the commercial district. Tourist district. As currently, that portion is now suburban residential.
I'll make a motion that we approve our.
It's bigger on here if you want, you can just scan it up.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Okay, 36. Article 37. That's still the same. The affordable housing, 226 Cedar Street. I believe this is already town-owned,
Yep.
and it's to authorize the town administrator to convey it for affordable housing purposes, and to accept an affordable housing restriction on the property.
And so that falls like in perpetuity, right? So it can only be ever be used for affordable housing?
Yep. There were restrictions with those on
Yes.
the resale value and how much you can resell the property for.
So if we decided we wanted to use it for another purpose in the future, that wasn't affordable housing because of this need.
We're going to give, I thought this article gives a property to,
Well, I think it's the next one that you have to create the affordable housing trust fund.
they're going to convey this to another entity who, like Habitat for Humanity, who's going to build a project on that property. That's the way I understood this article to function.
So 1.33 acres in Sturbridge is a very big parcel. So how many homes and/or residences are going to be established there?
Could only be one single-family residence, it's only 1.3 acres.
Not if it's served by water
If
and
it's
sewer.
water and sewer,
You only need a
Is
quarter
it
acre.
or a half acre?
I thought it was a half.
It's a quarter. That asterisk has never been removed. That was a contingency for a long, long time.
Really?
Yeah.
There are no buildings on the parcel now, is that right? It says-
Uh-huh.
I don't believe so, no.
How much frontage does it have? Because that will also determine.
That does make a difference, yeah, that I don't
Yeah.
know. But I think it's 150 feet, you need, if you have 600 feet, you can get 4 properties out of it.
600 feet is a lot of frontage
It sure is.
on Cedar Street,
Yeah.
Is it?
yeah. Those houses are pretty close together.
I don't, this is 226, so that's farther
Further
out,
down?
right?
Pretty far up.
Yeah,
I don't know what the
Might be
frontage
on
is.
the other side of the Mass Pike, north of the
Yeah,
Pike.
that's
Yeah,
what
I think it is.
it is, it has to be.
Yes, it is.
Oh, so it could have
It
to
is.
go around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I have 600.
Oh, you just got, you Googled as opposed to.
Yeah, because when you're down further.
It's not,
out,
it's not the
That
town.
parcel.
It is, wow.
But it's-
This is
I had an
what-
RFP for that, so
And what is the RFP in your?
So it's vacant
Right.
land, huh?
solicitation for someone to acquire and construct on the property affordable housing.
Ryan? Anchorville?
I mean,
When I talked to Jean, she was talking singular unit there, but you are raising issues as to,
When the CPC talked about this, there were 2 pieces of property and then one of them purpose, so it's not water and sewer.
Right,
Oh.
sewer doesn't go all the way down.
That's right, it's really
Doesn't
far up.
cross, no, it doesn't cross the Pike.
So
Well,
it's
that's right,
in
you're
one
the clerk
unit.
for them, too.
Yeah.
Oh, so wonderful.
very good.
That's good to know.
That's right, it is pretty far up.
I didn't know how far up water and sewer went.
Doesn't cross the Pike.
That's it,
Yeah.
okay.
So it would probably be one. Okay. Is there a motion?
This is Jeff
Well, I'm
checking
looking to get a
something.
little more
No,
information.
he said there was an RFP on it for,
I thought he was looking it up.
Would that, by definition, would that be limited to a single-family dwelling?
it depends upon what the zoning is, if, I don't know if a two-family would be allowed on there.
Or
Well,
single-
that's
If it was,
all,
it'd be unique to that section of
Right.
road, I'll tell you
Yeah.
that.
But that's all part of that RFP process. Who wants to come in and purchase the property, and what's the intent on the other end there? And, it'll certainly need to be within,
Has to be within the zoning bylaw.
the zoning bylaw
Could
requirements.
they request a variance?
Well,
Good.
yeah,
So we,
Well, I
so we
suppose they
don't know
could,
the
but-
zoning for that area.
I would imagine it's like rural residential,
It's either suburban or rural, it's probably rural.
which you could always do the in-law apartments and all that kind of stuff, the access use.
Right.
again, I think the intent here is for this to be a single-family home for someone to come in and take ownership, much like the Habitat for Humanity homes that go up.
That would be my hope, too.
I'm certainly
Yeah.
satisfied if that's what happens.
No, I'm with you there too, 1.33 acres is sizable in this town.
Not if you need a septic and a well, though.
No,
That's, mine's 1.29.
Yeah.
no. Do you have septic and well too?
All right, if it is rural, it's only single family is allowed, not a two-family. Though you're right about the
The accessory
accessory
use.
home use.
Yeah, you'd hate to shove a multi-family unit in the middle of a residential neighborhood that's all single-family homes.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Town of Sturbridge, acting by the Sturbridge Housing Partnership Committee, is soliciting proposals for the construction of one affordable housing unit on a town-owned unimproved parcel at 226 Cedar Street.
Okay.
All right, there we go.
There we go,
All right, is there a motion then? Now that we have that information.
I'll make the motion, prove it as written.
Second?
Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? I'm going to abstain because my husband's on the Housing Partnership Committee, so I don't know. We don't want any appearance of conflicts or anything. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so 601. So if you could actually put in, I abstain for
Conflict of
possible conflict.
Do we know how he voted?
No.
Oh, okay.
I print the minutes for him, but I don't read them. Article 38 is to establish a municipal affordable housing trust fund.
Now, I have a question here. The
All
only
right.
thing is we have a giant pot of CPA funds for affordable housing.
Yes, I
Can that
know.
be transferred into this? Which would make it kind of free it up for more places.
Can we do that? I thought the CPA funds had disbursement mechanisms that were,
I don't know, that's why I'm
Yeah.
asking. I mean, if they approve and said, yes, we'll fund the housing trust fund with funds from CPA, because
They have over $700,000.
Yeah, they have a big chunk of change, and it hasn't,
It could be close to 800 after this year, I don't know. I haven't
What-
seen the report.
that's my question here. Can it be funded through that mechanism?
I suspect that a member of the Housing Partnership Committee could answer that question.
Do you know? the
Do you know
answer to
that, Jeff?
I have no idea about that whatsoever.
Okay. Can we get that answer before we act on it? Because it would be interesting to see if we could see it.
Yeah, that would be a good idea.
I'd
I
like
could
that.
ask Barbara,
so
too.
so all this does is establish
Yeah, it
the
does
fund. It
establish it,
doesn't
right.
put any
Just
funding in
establish
there.
it.
Funding apparently will
I
come
guess it would
from
still like an
mechanism
answer to
later on.
that question, but you're right, Mike, it doesn't do anything like that, it's just established. I'm good with that, but I'd like to know if that's a mechanism we can use.
It might overcome some of the inertia that's happened in the.
Yeah, because
$100,000 in there.
it's a lot easier from, I would imagine to get it from this than it is through the whole CPC
I
mechanism.
think the last thing we spent out of that in affordable housing was about 10 to 15 years ago. We spent $50,000 for a study and nothing's
we're
been- and there's-
redoing.
And there's $800,000 sitting there since then, waiting for someone to come up with an idea.
And we're redoing that
I
study.
know, so here we go.
Yes. We did do one Habitat house,
We did.
yes.
Yeah.
So,
It's over on
On Fairgrounds, is that the one?
Fair, yeah.
over there, yeah.
They
so,
got CPA
so,
money?
That was CPA money, yeah.
Okay.
did you pull up this chapter and section? The words seem nice. It seems like it's a trust fund that could take funding later on, but I just want to make sure that, this is not yet another tax that's going to end up on the bill, tax
Oh,
bill
no, I don't
because of
think
how
so,
we're doing
Val.
it.
It's not like the CPA.
Right.
Well, I would think if we establish a fund, there's gonna have to be a further vote on another article to put money in the fund.
That's
so-
usually what happens.
Right.
so if the fund is there and we don't put any money in it, it's not.
I'm okay with that, I just,
That's it.
I just want to know why they think we need it, what they're going to do with it. How it's going to be
well,
funded.
I know you have at least one selectman and several other people who are around town who are looking for more affordable housing within the town of Sturbridge. For, young families, elderly, and so it appears to me that this is just a push to make sure there are mechanisms available. Housing Partnership Committee and others are being reconstituted, getting a little bit more active. We're hoping that we're getting some momentum to spend some of these funds and find some solutions here, so.
So it
Jeff?
says they can accept and receive real property, personal property, or money by gift, grant, contribution, devise or transfer from any person, firm, corporation, other public or private entity, grant funds, et cetera,
Okay.
to fund it. Doesn't necessarily have to be from the town. I don't know about the CPA fund, because that's probably in a different statute. That's probably in the statute. on-
Yes.
Just a question to the town administrator. Jeff, didn't you say that when this current project is completed over in Fairgrounds, is it Road?
Yes, that it will.
That'll
with
put us at the
10%.
10% we need?
That's correct.
Okay,
My understanding.
to be in compliance.
Right.
Interesting. So what does that do to the CPA Act? So we hit that minimum level, and that's sort of what the CPA funds are to get us to 10%? Does that free up all that money for the use? Or does it have to?
No,
stay?
I think it's still earmarked. I don't think they can touch it. Otherwise, we'd be buying another 1,000 acres of open space.
Yeah.
Sorry, I shouldn't have said that.
I mean, it's for, I mean, I believe you can use it for, not just building,
Right.
but sustaining the low income and, or affordable housing, I believe. Not 100% sure.
Rent control of properties, basically.
No, no, if they needed, say, major repairs or something.
Permits or-
I think that they can be. I'm not all,
Wish we could use
Totally
it
familiar
towards the
with that.
senior center.
If you read-
they don't live there.
I know.
Depository for funds that are raised.
Yes, but I don't know about the CPC funds, because that's probably in the CPC statute and not in that one.
Well, that would certainly, I think, be a good use of the Finance Committee's time and whatever, to get, accurate information, to better understand how these funds can be spent and utilized. So we're not necessarily speculating, and we've got the,
Well, the first
Yep, the
step is to
information is-
accept this statute.
yep, I'm okay with this one.
Motion to approve Article, I have it as 38, it's written.
Yeah, it is 38,
Sure,
the
yeah.
new one.
Second.
Right. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstaining? Abstained, okay. 601. I'm sure I can get you some information. On that one.
Now the easy one.
Which one?
Article 41, public marijuana consumption. I got all types of questions for the lawyers.
All right, we did,
Did
We
we
don't
do,
know the
we did
lines
39, you guys did 39,
Still too new.
I'm looking here, I'm pretty sure we did.
Yeah.
We did 39 and 40, right?
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah, I thought we did. I know, this is where I'm getting lost. Yes, actually, I did have some questions, and unfortunately, I couldn't reach the chief today. So,
did 10 task one.
yes, we did do the fantastic one. This is Article 41, this is Public Marijuana Consumption Bylaw. So this is to add a new Chapter 8, Section 8.7, and it is not only the prohibition of public consumption of marijuana, but it's also similar to the open container for alcohol in a vehicle, which is 8.73. So Kevin, would you like to start off?
Can I will walk through all my questions, because I have some questions on the section. So,
I don't
in
know
the
if we can
first
answer.
part, right, in 8.71, it talks about manufactured to contain marijuana or an extract from marijuana, then it goes on to say a little bit later, and other ingredients. So does that mean this also includes CBD, which is quite available everywhere else in Massachusetts? I mean, that, it is an extract from marijuana, may not contain the hallucinogenic part, but it definitely doesn't differentiate between the two, and I don't know if that general law, chapter 94C, section 1 does. So that was my first question.
Are you asking me to look that one up, too? Oh, I don't know. Do you know that one, Karen?
I think Karen says it's the area of Waterbury Gray.
Yeah, and that's a very good question. I mean, CBD is available, and
Yeah,
people would be using
you can get it
it
anywhere, you can
in
buy
their
it.
car, or in their, you know what I mean?
Right now, I know there's the convenience station in Dudley, right by the courthouse,
Yeah.
that sells it.
And it's not a intoxicant?
No,
No.
it doesn't contain.
It doesn't.
No.
Doesn't contain the,
Jeff, you might as well just sit down at this point.
THC part.
right.
Yeah.
This was drafted by the chief in coordination with town council. So I would recommend if you have questions, either just
Let's
don't
collect
try
them
to
all.
figure them out, just give me the questions, or re-invite the chief back to discuss the ordinance with you.
So I'll go.
Because I don't have answers for you on this particular ordinance this evening.
And my other questions is 8.72, does that include boats? I mean, is a boat considered a motorized vehicle?
Are you talking about which one?
Public
873?
conception, yeah. You know, it says, you know, in any, upon any public place. So
Oh.
that means, is that included a boat upon a lake or a canoe in the river? I mean, I'm just wondering, it makes, by everything that is written in here, detailed, it makes it sound like it's standing on solid surface.
Now,
So-
question, we
so-
don't have a public consumption bylaw on alcohol, do
That
we?
was my question.
I don't think we do. I thought I looked
That
that up
was my
today.
question.
You can go and join the wine and beer that's being served on the common this evening.
To address Kevin's question, it says, "Or any area owned, leased, or occupied by or otherwise under the control of the town of Sturbridge." I don't know of a lake in Sturbridge that's in Sturbridge that isn't under the control of the police.
Yeah, they're all Great Ponds, so they're all owned by the Commonwealth.
Yeah, but when the
police
police have to
They're
go on the
policed.
lake and put a boat on it, they
Okay,
have jurisdiction.
but later on, right, again,
What
So,
was the first question?
Does
Are
other
we
ingredients,
going to invite the chief back to go over this with
well, I
you?
think we were gonna
We've had 'em
collect
here
all the
enough.
questions. so we
well,
can-
yeah, and is it possible, before we get into the nitty-gritty detail, Kathy brought up a good point, we don't have this type of ordinance for alcohol, why are we doing it for marijuana? And if, you know, are we even gonna consider supporting it based on that one piece of information?
I would have a hard time supporting it if there isn't an equivalent one for alcohol.
That's what I mean, so,
Yeah, I did look today, there is not. And there's not a state law.
well-
It is by town ordinance or bylaw.
Well, let's go back. Does the law allows recreational possession and use of marijuana, right? But
Yes.
not in
But there's
public, right?
laws
It's
in
only
place for
in,
that.
in private space, right?
That may be what it says in the letter of the law, but the spirit of law is not that, because I can tell you numerous places where I've smelt it, even driving by my house.
but I think to your point, though, there are laws in place already, so if somebody violates smoking marijuana in a public place, there are laws that the police can arrest them on. Now we're adding another layer to this, a town bylaw that now will penalize them a second time, and that doesn't exist for the alcohol. I mean, you can't drive around and drink a beer,
Agreed.
and you
I mean,
can't-
I don't have any objection to the open container law, though I have some reservations about the way it's worded, but
It doesn't apply to a Segway.
because there is an open container law in Massachusetts. It's a law, not a bylaw, it's a state law.
Right, but isn't there already in place a law with regard to marijuana, driving around in your car smoking it?
Right.
Walking down the street smoking it? So the law is already in place. What this is asking to do is add another layer of penalizing people. So if we're not doing that for alcohol, why are we doing the second layer for marijuana? Would be my question.
Which may be even harder
What's
to
the public
enforce.
policy behind this?
It's a good question.
So regardless of all the little
The
pieces,
details.
which are important, and I don't want to
I
diminish that.
I think it's worth
importance.
letting the chief, if we're going to invite the chief, it's worth hearing what he has to say. I wouldn't want to vote on it now, but.
So let me ask a question, because it came to me as you were talking about there isn't something for alcohol. So we don't have a bylaw in town that prohibits having an open can of beer in your lap as you're driving around.
Not a bylaw.
Well, not in the car,
However,
I mean, there's some
okay,
state
but-
laws on that,
But
but.
I was just gonna
But
say,
not-
if
but
there's a
like,
state
they're
law
selling-
that covers that,
They were selling beer and wine on the common right now.
okay, but if there's a state law that covers that, and under that state law, our local police can enforce that state law.
Right.
And there is no state law that covers this, so we're passing a local law to cover this so that our police can enforce. That's similar to the state law. Is that a conflict?
But there are state laws that apply to marijuana.
There are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh,
if this
yeah.
is redundant to an existing state law, then I agree. What do we need it
Well,
for?
but hang on, I want to, it applies only to products containing THC, right? Not products containing CBD.
I have no idea. I mean, now you're getting
Then
into
maybe
that.
we
I
better get
mean,
the chief.
I
That's
think it
how I-
applies to,
We could spin our wheels among ourselves, or we could
If
you know,
I'm-
wait for the chief.
If I'm drinking non-alcohol beer, I guess I
That's
should be
why I'm curious
subject to
about
the same
this
thing as some
I don't think any of
drinking
those are
something
applied to
from the
CBD.
Treehouse
but
Brewery.
But they do apply to products that contain THC.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it did, yeah, I think you're right, yeah.
So that's why I'm kind of,
yeah, I think we need that question answered though, because it's a prejudice that we would be putting on the public above and beyond, you know, what exists for alcohol. And why are we doing that? And if there's a public policy reason, then let's hear what it is. But I just don't know what that public policy might be.
any,
Tom can explain the reason, the chief can explain the reasoning, and
well, the interesting part of it too is, right, it'll apply to anybody driving through Sturbridge who happens to, you know, get seen or anything like that.
But it
If
does
you're-
already, the law already exists. If you drive through Sturbridge drinking a beer and a police officer sees you, you're gonna get pulled over. If you drive through Sturbridge smoking a joint and a police officer sees you, you're gonna get pulled over, and there's penalties associated with both of those actions, you know.
Even though they can bylaws for either.
Correct.
Oh, because it's state law.
Right.
There's already state laws that govern that. And, you know, and the problem actually with the marijuana is that if it's in a form that's not smoking, how do they know? It could be in a candy, it could be in a brownie, how are they gonna know?
Well, the interesting thing too is it applies to a vehicle with a seat. So like saying, it doesn't apply to a Segway. You're standing, there's no seat in a Segway. You know, so if you had,
It also applies to passengers in this.
yeah,
And, you know, that's also an extra layer that doesn't generally exist.
I'm gonna compare it to state law. It's pretty harsh.
We'll need the chief. I did ask him when he was here the other night if he could speak to this one, and he had not.
I don't think you get arrested, I think you get fined. You're not
Well,
getting,
it's a civil offense.
It's a civil offense for this, but
But this is adding a $300 fine on top of the civil offense.
But the thing is, with marijuana, what if you made your own brownies? There is no seal to be broken. They're just in your car and
Well, now you're
whatever.
getting into the intricacies of future case law to determine
Right.
what is it defined as, and I don't think this
I don't think
bylaw
this
or
is.
the law is gonna solve that problem.
No, but I mean, it's just gonna cause more havoc,
More lawsuits.
more lawsuits.
Now we're gonna sue the town for their bylaw, and we're gonna sue the Commonwealth for their law.
You're gonna test brownies, and you enforce a $250 fine.
well, you know, I realize you're getting the details, but also, you know, if you grow your 6 plants outside that you get, and it's a weed, so if you want to trim it and burn the excess, you can't burn here, so no person shall burn. So, you know, what happens?
mix it in with some leaves, no one will know the difference.
Except by smell.
Give it to the neighborhood.
I don't know.
I think,
I'm not in favor of this the way it's written right
I
now.
think people are worried that the public areas of the town smell like smoke, like you said. That's such an
Well,
to the-
that could be something specifically presented by the chief, and I think people may be more open to, if it's a smell nuisance, that might be something worth considering.
But there's still already laws in
Yep.
place to deal with that. The question is, are we going to add another layer to our public? Another fine, another penalty to our public? And if we are, why are we gonna do that? Are we trying to generate money? Is that, you know what I mean? Is this money for the town? Is this a way to?
I think he was just looking for enforcement. This is not a revenue generator. He's just looking for enforcement now that we have legalized marijuana and whatever will come with, you know, public consumption and intoxication associated with that.
Another tool in the toolbox.
Yes.
Are you going to ask them questions, or are we going to bring them back in? How do you-
The questions are way too many. He's gonna have to come
I
back.
think it sounds like, yeah, I did try to reach out to him today, but,
Because I'll get you to answer the question, and that's gonna lead to another question, so.
yeah, I think so.
I mean, it goes to you, it really applies to anyone, like you're saying. but most
Plus,
of the
it,
people it's gonna affect
it
the
gets
residents.
filtered by the person who's asking and reporting back.
I might try to say, what the questions, you can decide on the board, what the chief.
I know when I spoke to the chief about the drone, he was
chief.
looking for written questions that he could prepare for ahead of time. And we kind of watched through me getting them from me going back. It turned out for that one, I kind of relayed what the topics were and then asked him to review the tape. So we'll ask him for the same thing here. But if you do have specific questions that you can forward ahead of time, I know that he would appreciate those.
The least we can do is spend some time.
I know.
And, you want to forward them to me and I can forward them to the chief?
Sure.
Okay. Maybe that way I could weed out duplicates and things like that. Yes,
Barbara, that should be capitalized.
okay. All right, have we,
So-
on
so,
the annual, have we done everything except for the CPC ones? I think
Yeah.
that we have.
This in the CPC.
And the fluoride.
And the fluoride, yeah. Yeah.
I think it was 30 maybe.
Oh,
It's an 80-20 rule.
So, let's see, we can turn to the special town meeting warrant. So I don't think we have figures.
did you print out that one?
Special town
The new one?
No, there's no new special one.
There isn't? Okay, so I have the other one.
You have the old one? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, this is Article 54. Is a free cash transfer for the snow and ice deficit, which we see, of course, every year in one form or another. This year, it's only $50,513.11. I don't expect.
I'll make a motion to
it be any
approve as
more.
written.
Second. Okay, never mind. Karen?
It's the K block.
That's right. Any discussion on this? All in favor? That's 7-0.
I'll make a motion we approve Article 55 as written.
No, we can't do that.
We can, actually.
We can.
We can't,
Why not?
because it's, we don't have, there's nothing here to pay this.
There isn't a specific amount of money. So we need
I
to,
think the
I thought it
last
was in the
time,
detail.
I think that
We went through this last year.
we approved it, and then if, right before the town meeting, we held a meeting, if there are actually any bills, she gives us the amount, we vote it.
Okay.
so we could, if we don't have it, we would just say.
It's a
we'll make a
placeholder,
rec-
basically, at
Right.
this point.
Our recommendation will be provided at town meeting, and then we
Yeah.
can vote a specific
Yeah, we could do
article
that.
or no action at.
But remember, if we do that, then we aren't the first
No,
to,
Right, we can't, yeah, the Finance Committee won't be heard on it.
right.
That's the town moderator's
Town's
position.
on it.
If we don't make a motion recommendation here, we're not the first people to be heard when it comes to the town meeting floor.
This happened at the last meeting?
We did this last.
Yeah, we did, that's the
And
way
we met
it's
right
been doing.
before the town
Yeah, we
meeting.
met before.
Plugged
We,
the number.
We need a,
But
yeah,
you
we need a
would've-
substitute
then you
motion.
would have substitute motion to the.
Yes.
if we already voted to approve it, then we could put our substitute motion in. If we vote no action, then we don't get first dibs
Right.
at the town
So
meeting.
that's why I thought a recommendation should be provided at town meeting. And then at town
No,
meeting.
no, that's what he does.
That's us not
That's what,
giving a recommendation.
that's not a
Taking no
recommendation.
action, basically.
So what we
Well,
would do,
what are our choices? No action, in which case.
approve it as written.
And then reconsider if there's an actual bill. And then.
Well, no, you
well,
would
we'd
have to vote. you would have
we're
to
still gonna have to vote.
reconsider or take no action.
Right.
Because.
We're still
this-
gonna have to vote on, before the meeting, because if we can't, we have to
Yeah,
have a
transfer
number.
of sum of money is way too general.
Right. It sounds like for this one. It sounds like for this one, maybe a conversation
We're
with him.
not very
you know,
trusting, Jeff.
I'm afraid if you say vote is approved and we don't get another article, then the recommendation is to vote this. Now we gotta bring a substitute motion that says
action.
no action. Now we gotta vote on the substitute motion. If that fails for some silly reason, then we're back to this. So that's gonna put us in the wrong position.
Don't we just bring it up for reconsideration?
Yes.
And then we reconsider, and then we say, okay, we move, and we plug in the amount, and we vote on
Yes.
it, and we're done.
That's what we do.
Isn't that how we do it? That's pretty
That's the way we did
straightforward.
it.
Okay.
That is the way we did it last year.
Seems like a straight shot from here to there.
Somebody should put in the summary box, you know, what we're doing and why, so that they know what's coming on the town meeting, including the moderator.
There you go.
The article doesn't have a specified amount of money, and for what it is, if
Had
a
it last
substitute
year.
motion is brought forward, we'll bring that to town meeting.
Okay. I do have,
So what did, so we're not
we're
voting?
gonna, I guess the thing is to go forward with recommendation to be provided at town meeting. I think I heard that from Jim and Mike.
No.
No, I
All we
don't think
did
so.
last year was we
Recommendation, we're gonna have a
approved it as
meeting
written,
prior to the town
And then
meeting.
if she had a number,
Finance
we
committee.
reconsidered and then we approved the number.
At our meeting, the night of the town meeting, the finance committee meets at 6
Oh,
o'clock.
we did actually put recommendation last year, we given it town meeting.
See?
In the
That's-
box.
No, that was the recommendation in town meeting, that's what we put in there. And then if there's, and at town meeting, we will have a recommendation, no action, because
Well, you
nothing,
know, for
nothing's
something
good.
like this, we would have this number well before it, so you could even meet the week before, so you don't have to meet at 6 o'clock.
I don't, yeah, I thought we had actually voted.
Okay.
Maybe they took it that way. Maybe Mike still allowed us to speak.
I have a Article 56, I would like to know who the sponsor is.
So we're going to do recommendation to be given at the town meeting on Article 55? To beat a dead horse here, but,
Or on receipt of
or upon receipt.
amount of
Okay.
specific amount
You know
requested.
what, I'm gonna go back and check what we did the year before that, because I remember that format.
That that we're going to give the recommendation at town meeting on Article 55.
You want to put in for the possibility that Kevin knows that we get the money before. town
Well,
meeting?
yeah, but the book wouldn't have it.
The book won't have it.
Book one.
That's okay, because we
But-
still could give the moderator your motion
Our
well
motion.
before the meeting. yeah.
Yeah.
So Article 56, the tree warden salary account, is the Board of Selectmen? Okay. I
Check this with the previous year.
Did you have questions?
Well, I have no problems with this article as it's presented, but I just want to point out, I'm interested in the fact that there was a similar type of thank you stipend off, or in the works at one point for the finance director and the town accountant for all the additional time and work and effort that they put into the town hall and center office building project, and that it basically would not be considered. So I'm just interested that, granted, this was 6 years ago, when a similar type of concept for additional work and labor and, a thank you was to be considered, it wasn't, and now we're doing it. Otherwise, I really have no problem with this. I find it interesting that at one point in time, maybe the composition of the board has changed, and therefore philosophical views changed.
I think part of it is that the regular stipend is so minuscule.
I was just going to say.
The work was so grand that it is much different than the two examples you pointed
I mean, we
out.
had to fund an additional $250,000 worth
Right.
of work that he had to supervise.
270,
And it's
Yeah.
only
Yeah, actually, it was
one time.
270 because we did a reserve fund
That's
transfer
right.
for
Plus
part of
he
it.
had
And then
money
the
in
town,
there,
the STM.
So that's a lot of work to supervise for
Oh, yeah,
$2,500
no,
a year.
I absolutely agree, he earned it.
I think it
He
is,
earned it.
I mean, I would think that that's a different viewpoint, basically, that
His stipend
that
is
they
like
were
$2,500
fully
bucks.
funded
I know, but
salary.
they put in.
I know they put in a lot of
budget.
time.
Additional hours, well beyond their 40 or 37 and a half hour work week. It was a lot of time and effort, and it was like, thanks. Okay,
But anyway,
I will vote to move Article 56 as written,
Second.
and we will be adding the sponsors board of selectmen. Just, you know, there's that.
I'll write that in. Any further discussion on the tree warden? Jim, are you
No,
thinking
I'm
about-
waiting for
Oh,
you
you
to
wait
say.
for, oh, all in
waiting for the
favor?
vote. It's a reflex, the arm goes up.
7-0, thank you. I don't know, you look so tentative. Okay, the next, Article 57, Emergency Action Plan, Cedar Pond Dam and Big Elm Pond Dam, to transfer $48,000 for the Emergency Action Plan for Cedar Pond Dam and Big Elm Pond Dam.
And is this sponsor
Yeah, who is-
fire chief, police chief, emergency coordinator?
Board of Selectmen.
It's the board of selectmen too, okay.
And you can fill in that line the rest of the way. You're all used.
Okay.
Now, where are these dams?
They're all-
Obviously on Cedar Pond and Big Elm, but,
If I may,
Sure.
Madam Chair, this is the reason behind these studies or plans. In 2012, Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 21, Section 25, was enacted to require the owners of significant hazard potential dams to prepare emergency action plans for their dams. Previously, only owners of high hazard dams had to meet that standard. On February 10, 2017, the Massachusetts Dam Safety Regulations were amended to be consistent with the 2012 law. Therefore, we have significant hazard potential dams. These are these two dams. So now we have to prepare the mitigation.
but is there anything right now known to be wrong with them?
No, they, just because they are
It's just they
classified as such.
come
we have to
under that
prepare the necessary
classification.
plans.
Is this another unfunded state mandate?
Hey, does this basically include everything from evacuation plans to how to fix it if something was to go wrong with it? or-
Yeah, it's a risk assessment and an after downstream. Just to make us aware of what could happen and how to handle it if it does.
You say to protect what?
To protect the animals,
Animals?
there's emergency, isn't it?
Well, the Cedar Pond Dam is right here on Route 20.
Yeah, right.
So, you'll flood out this end of town,
Oh, is it?
and businesses and
By
so
Animal
forth.
Spirits,
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And where's the Big Allen one?
I have no idea what Big Allen's is. Where's Big Allen's?
I don't know.
So it's really to protect everything downstream, the public, not just animals, but people,
And
property and so
infrastructure.
forth.
What roads could be washed away, what drainage systems will be impacted, water systems, sewer systems, they're impacted.
So how often will we have to do this or update it?
I wonder if it's 3 years, like when we have to do, or 5 years, is it when we do the dam inspections?
Is that how often we do them? Every 5 years, the dam inspections?
5 or 3 or 5?
I don't know, we have to have this plan done by December 31st, 2009.
19.
19.
Oh,
And just out of, who will be doing it? Is it like our DPW director, or do we bring someone in to do it?
We're gonna bring someone in to do it.
Okay, beautiful.
Recommend. Okay.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve Article 57 as written.
Second.
any further discussion? All in favor? 7-0. Do we have the amount yet for the next one, the funding for the union contract, police union?
It's gonna be somewhere 150 to 200.
Oh, that's too vague for us.
I know.
So this is the one that's retroactive for 3 years though, right?
Yeah.
Well, it says for fiscal
for 2 years.
18 and 19.
This contract
because
is
it's in
18,
this one.
19, and 20.
Yeah, so it's in this budget already.
Yeah.
Right, yes.
So we don't have the number tonight, but I thought this was one of the topics for the selectmen's meeting for next week, so they'll have it then.
I think it is on their agenda, because I happened to read it. And by the way, they are meeting on Tuesday, so we are meeting in conference room 2.
So we could have that number Tuesday night to wrap
Why,
it up.
why Tuesday? Is there a holiday Monday?
I don't know.
Well, the meeting was supposed to be. They canceled one meeting and then.
Oh.
I was just curious, I didn't know of a holiday, so I, maybe.
No,
there's
they
some-
did, I don't know why.
So, on Article 59, I'll make a motion that we approve as written. 58? Oh, yeah.
No.
No,
No, 59.
58, we're waiting for
58
the
is
We'll
number.
wait for the number.
contract. We need a dollar amount. We trust you, it's just a requirement
Trust but
we have to
verify.
Um, That sponsors the beer.
Why is this words that never came out of Reagan's?
All right, what is a Badger meter system?
Wait a minute.
Badger's a brand name.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Run the software, hardware upgrade. So what does that do?
I think this is the radio.
You're a
one,
techie.
right?
You-
Yeah.
you two are
You
techie.
You drive around and you can pick it up. All these meters are radioed now. Something to do with upgrading, all that stuff.
Well,
Oh, it's from the water. Oh, it's something to do with the water.
It's water meters.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Sounds like the current system isn't going to be supported any longer, so really there's not much of a
Oh,
choice
okay.
here.
Oh, and it's coming from the Water Reserve Fund
Yeah.
balance anyway. Okay.
Did I make a motion?
No, not yet.
No, no
I
motion
made a
yet.
motion to approve it as written. I thought I did.
No,
Second.
I would have written it down. Any other discussion?
Yeah, I was just curious, is this the only option to upgrade it? Is there other systems? Was there any RFP?
I kind of vaguely remember when we kind of went to the wireless system, and it was a much bigger chunk of money than this.
Oh,
They moved away from mechanical meters as a huge slip.
okay. Well, I'm not too concerned about it.
Okay. All in favor? 7-0. Okay. Getting there.
So the marijuana bylaw and CPC and the fluoride system are the only open
Fluoride
items we have?
and then the cruise control.
Yep,
Yeah, police contract, yeah.
that's it.
Okay.
And so next week, I put on the agendas, let's narrow down the topics for consideration, who's going to write them and all that. So we should decide that by next week. Because we're getting towards the end here. So where's my agendas? What's next? I think we're done completely now with the budget.
By the way, when this came up last time, there was no action because there were no bills last time.
That's right, yeah, there weren't any bills. And she doesn't have any yet on the unpaid
Right.
bills. Or at least the last time I talked to her. Okay, so we're up to, there's no reserve fund transfers. We do have minutes. We have 2 sets.
Oh, yeah.
April 16th and April 18th.
In here somewhere.
Jim, have you read them?
I have.
I don't believe.
You're our wordsmith.
Do you have them printed?
Yeah, does anybody need them? I printed them. I've already read them.
I know you sent it, but I didn't get a chance to take
Yeah.
a look.
Read them so carefully as to pick out
You can
any
write on.
spelling or punctuation errors, but
16.
as far as the content is concerned, I found it to be accurate.
Yeah, I skimmed them, yeah. I didn't.
I wasn't looking for punctuation and spelling errors, I was just looking for content.
Come on, Jeff.
Good
Good night,
night.
Jeff.
Good night.
Didn't see any inaccuracies here.
Is there a motion to accept the minutes of April 16th?
Give me 30 seconds.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I'm good. So Jim, we make a motion to accept it as written?
I'll make the motion to accept the minutes of April 16th, 2019 as presented.
I will second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposing, abstained. So that's Sheila. You're gonna let them vote?
Go to the 18th.
Now, 18th, you missed the vote.
18th?
On the 16th, we're on the 18th.
Oh, I wasn't
now.
here. I abstained on the 16th.
Oh, okay. Good. Yeah, that's right, you weren't here. I forgot that. Ugh. Okay, the 18th. Anybody wants to look at them real quick?
I might have a question after we're done with this.
I make a motion to accept the minutes of April 18th as written.
I'll second that, unless Karen wants to. if she's-
Oh, I'm good.
Okay.
About halfway down, the paragraph that starts K-N, title was
On page,
K-N. K-N asked if Sturbridge is school choice. You want has school choice?
Oh, that was the other minutes, though.
Oh. Oh, that was
No.
on the 16th.
No, ask if Sturbridge is school choice, that's the correct question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
if it says is school choice, that's acceptable.
That is the correct
What
question.
is it?
It's an option for us to choose it, so.
You either are or you aren't.
I see, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to vote to be one of, be it or not.
It's choice or it is.
You either are school choice or you're not school choice, so it is or isn't, yeah. You is or you isn't.
Okay. All right, we have a motion on the for the 18th minutes, April 18th minutes. Any other discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstaining? That's... six. Oh. Yeah, you weren't here. Okay. So 502 on both? 3, actually, for the 16th? You're changing your vote?
I was absent both.
Okay, okay. All right, new business. Kevin,
As I mentioned in the beginning of the meeting, I received an email from a member of the public through the town website, because I guess mine's the only email that
I
can be accessed.
keep forgetting to give it.
But either way, and basically, the individual wanted to make sure that in our line item budget that's going to be presented in our annual report, actually clearly delineate and identify the salaries in, not as one item like it has the last 2 previous years, but breaks it out by department head, salaries and wages and longevity, like we have. And then he also wanted to make sure that we indicate the percentage increase over the prior fiscal year, which we've done. So I just wanted to let him know, because I didn't know how to respond to him through the town system.
Oh,
So we've
I don't
returned to prior practice.
Well, not quite, because
Not
we used to vote on
entirely.
each of those line items
Right,
separately.
right.
We're not quite, but we are clearly identifying now, which was my concern the last 2 years as well, that the department head salaries, the salaries and wages, and the longevity, so people can see, here's what people are actually getting paid and what the increase is by those line items. So we've addressed his concerns, and I just wanted to make
that
sure he
was
was
all,
aware of that.
that was the only question you
That
had?
was the
Okay.
only concern he had. He wanted to make sure that we took care of that this year.
Okay,
I think we're still voting the total
Yes,
line.
that's correct.
But they'll see that detail.
That's what the problem has been. Now, the details weren't there. You had to go fishing around in separate parts of the book to figure
I
it
mean, what
out.
you see here is what gets printed in the book.
Yes.
So, yes, it will be seen then.
But last year, what you're talking about was in the back, in a separate
Right,
section.
but, you know, it makes it, and it didn't do the prior year, previous year, didn't give you any of that information. It really looked shady. So, you know, I'm all about the transparency part of it here.
All right, any other new business? Old business? We lost our public. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, adjourned at 9 o'clock.
Just a
Thank you.
story, I was watching the
We should
Board
probably-
of Selectmen meeting when they were considering the marijuana bylaw
Okay.
in Marytown.